This little camera drops you straight into a 1980s video game world. This is Pixless, a pixel art camera that renders the world around you in a retro 8-bit video game style. And if your first reaction is, why would I need this? Then this is probably not the camera for you. But if this camera looks interesting to you, keep watching. So let's start with the camera itself. The Pixless is tiny. It fits right in the palm of your hand. You can just carry it with you all the time. You can easily put it into your pocket or your bag. The body of the camera is 3D printed, which is also part of that quirky, nerdy character. There are only two buttons on the camera. One is the power button and the other is the shutter button. It has a built-in rechargeable battery, charged through USB-C. It takes a micro SD card, and surprisingly, there's even a tripod mount at the bottom. But this is one of those cameras I don't really think need a tripod mount. There's a tiny OLED display on the back, and when I say tiny, I mean tiny. It's only 1 inch. Very low resolution as well, 128 x 64 pixels, so only about 8,000 dots in total. And it's just black and white, not even grayscale. The screen is not that bright, so when using it outdoors, you may not be able to see what's on the screen at all. Usually when you're taking photo using a normal camera, you will know exactly what photo you are going to capture by looking at the camera's LCD screen or EVF. But for these Pixless, every time you press the shutter, you don't really know what exactly the photo is going to look like. The tiny black and white screen only gives you a very rough idea of what you are going to capture. That is, if you can see the screen. So most of the time, I can't be bothered to get perfect framing or exposure or anything. I just point the camera and click. And strangely, I think that's part of the charm. I take a photo and wait until I got home and wait for the camera to surprise me. Sometimes it's a good surprise, sometimes it's a bad surprise, but it's always fun. Startup does take a few seconds, so it's not exactly instant, but I think it's perfectly fine for what this camera is. Okay, now let's talk about image quality. Or maybe I shouldn't even call it image quality, because what you captured are not really photographs in the traditional sense. These are pixel art. Only 0.03 megapixels. The lens is 35mm equivalent focal length and f1.2 aperture. But don't expect to shoot anything with shallow depth of field because of the tiny sensor which gives you huge depth of field. The camera has fixed focus like most toy cameras. The final image looks like some kind of 8-bit computer game pixel art rather than a real photograph. And that's really the whole point of this camera. You're not getting realistic colors, you're not getting much detail at all, you are getting a tiny little piece of pixel art that roughly represents the scene you photograph. And I absolutely like it. One thing that surprised me is the aspect ratio. Instead of the old school 4:3 aspect ratio that we often associate with old CRT screens and retro video games, the Pixless actually outputs 2:1 aspect ratio, 256 by 128 pixels output. While the 2:1 aspect ratio works well on a phone or a computer screen, I do wish there was a 4:3 output option. Because if you're going to go all in on this retro 8-bit aesthetic, I think a 4:3 mode would look fantastic, give you that old CRT screen vibe. Now, not only the photos you capture have that retro 8-bit computer game vibe, the camera's manual system feels retro too. I am really showing my age here, but it really reminds me of those old DOS command line system and software interfaces from the 1980s. Because apart from the power button, there's only one button to control the camera, so it does take a bit of time to get used to the control system. A long press of the shutter button brings up the setup menu. A short press moves through the different options, and a long press adds more like enter or select. It does make me wonder why there are not 1 or 2 more buttons to make the control easier, but then I feel they intentionally did that to give you that retro style control. That quirkiness just adds a bit of character and fun. Surprisingly, there are quite a few things you can adjust from the camera menu. For example, there is even a RAW output setting. But RAW basically means the original JPEG captured by the camera before all of those pixel art treatment is applied. You can create your own color palette and load it onto the camera. So you can have black and white, muted colors, funky colors, or pretty much whatever you wanted. And there's one surprise setting that I didn't really expect to find on this camera. It has Wi-Fi. When you enable Wi-Fi, the camera displays a QR code. You scan that with your phone and connect to the camera. And surprisingly, the Wi-Fi actually works really well. The connection and setup are very fast. You access the camera through a very simple web interface. From there, you can access all the photos, and there's even a live view mode where you can see the live view on your phone. You can also change the camera settings. You can even load and select color palettes onto the camera and preview the palette effect. The web interface reminds me of Y2K websites, which again fits the personality of this camera perfectly. Now, there's one more thing I haven't mentioned, the price. The price of the Pixas is €80 for the standard edition. Is it expensive? Absolutely. It is really expensive for a 0.03 megapixel toy camera. In fact, it's more expensive than the Hasselblad X2DII if you calculate the price per pixel. But I think counting pixels is pretty much exactly opposite to the point of this camera. It is not competing with any camera on image quality, build quality, or features. It's competing on fun. If you have followed me on this channel for a while, you will know that I've played with many toy cameras, and I found this Pixas is surprisingly well designed and polished. If you ask me why anyone would need this camera when we all have a phone that can take photos that are 1,000 times better in quality, obviously this camera is not for you. In this age, when AI can render ultra-realistic photos and videos, the lo-fi pixel art photos from this plastic 0.03 megapixel camera actually feels more real than any AI photo.